Okay. Hello, everyone. How is everyone doing? Good evening to you all. Hope you all had wonderful weekends. It's Monday evening, 21st of July, and we are here for part two of our hopefully eye opening little mini live stream series on melanin. I think we had a really good discussion yesterday regarding this topic. So I came up with the term. I feel like I should coin this term, trademark it, melaninjas. So this is Melaninjas part two. And yeah, it's fantastic to have you all here. There's about 24 who are live online right now, which is amazing. And yeah, I just want to thank you guys, first of all, for being an excellent community. I know subjects like this are going to be contentious, okay? I'm aware of the fact that I have some fantastic non-melanated subscribers who are very encouraging, who love the work I do. And one thing is, I don't want people to kind of feel that I'm pushing any kind of, black supremacist narrative here. But it's very important that we have a more honest outlook and dialogue regarding human biologies and differences between different groupings of people. And I think for the longest time, most black/melanated people will tell you that we've been told an opposite story, even though we intrinsically might know differently. So even though we intrinsically might know what our bodies are capable of, and what it's like to walk out in the sun, what it feels like, etc., even though we might intrinsically know these things, it's I should say internally know these things, that doesn't stop mainstream science from essentially doing its best to undermine. I always say this about the way we're taught health in the way the medical establishment teaches healthcare, is that it privatizes white strength and democratizes white weakness. That's one thing. That's so to explain that, if there's ever something that's classified or seen as a weakness of the quote unquote white community, that's democratized across all of humanity. It becomes a human condition, even if they've run tests and they know that it's something that they suffer from at greater rates, such as Parkinson's, which was discussed yesterday. That will never come up. It's going to be discussed as a human condition. But if there's anything that they see as a strength, such as when the whole SARS-CoV thing went down, I think you guys know what I'm talking about. When that whole thing went down, immediately they began, and it was a fake narrative, by the way, I'm not going to go into that, but they began pushing this narrative that they were essentially stronger and the other people were more vulnerable to it. That was a whole spin and a whole nonsense, by the way. I looked into that quite heavily, read several reports, including the Public Health England one, and I could tell you categorically that it was just a case of data manipulation and fabrication that got them there. And I could play some videos actually that of people who have done much deeper diving into this subject and who have fully debunked it, because we know we all believe the opposite at the start of that whole situation. But this is just, I just say that as an example of how there's definitely an insecurity about being transparent about the true nature of the differences in biology of the Aboriginal /melanated /black races and the later races. There's definitely a denial, and it's important that we can have these pragmatic discussions, and for people to not be too emotional. We have to cover this. That's the bottom line, So there you go. Thank you very much for the encouraging words in the chat. Like yesterday's live stream, we're not going to spend too much time in our room. We got to kind of dive straight in because we've got hour, maybe a little bit over, but I have to keep these live streams relatively. By the way, let me know how you feel. I know these live streams have been shorter than usual, but let me know, is there any benefits to this, such as people who are going back to some of these live streams I've done, starting I think on Wednesday, and going back and playing them back, and they're like 1/3 of the length they normally are. Is that beneficial? Do you prefer that format? Let me know how you feel. So yeah, it'd be important for me to kind of like get some feedback from you. I hope it's not too bad. I can't, it's just a practicality thing. I cannot do the 3-hour live streams, otherwise I won't keep this up. I know that for a fact. So I thought to start off with, I'm going to play this video because it's only got 1,800 views. So my live streams tend to get more views. So I wanted everyone to see this video, which is my the accompanying video. It's called the pitch video, but I didn't want to use that word pitch, but whatever. This is the video that I've got accompanying my book launch, and I want everyone to see it because I've had some positive feedback from it. So we'll start off, view this. The link to the book launch pre-sale is in the chat if you want to participate. I obviously would be very grateful, but I'm going to let this play and then we'll dive straight in. So this is like a 5-minute video. We'll let this one play through and then we'll go straight in. Okay, cool. Hello and welcome to my Kickstarter. If you put a 1 in the chat if you can hear the audio okay when it starts, okay? If you're a subscriber to the King's Monologue on either YouTube, Instagram or TikTok, then you probably know who I am already. But for those of you who are new, first of all, thank you for actually coming here and viewing my proposal. Secondly, my name's Andrew, and let me take you through my project.
We only get a few opportunities during our lifetimes to really make a lasting positive impact and contribution. A few years ago, when I founded the King's Monologue, I didn't know I was making one of those choices. I only knew there was a huge difference between what I understood about our true history and what was being taught about it in schools and across the media. Fast forward to 2025, and thankfully I've been able to impact tens of millions of people about the true authentic history in Africa and beyond. My research has created discourse, stoked controversy and courted arguments, but ultimately, I have unapologetically provided balanced and well-supported refutations against a false historical narrative, whitewashed and gate-kept by centuries of Western academic racial bias. The King's Monologue has helped to uncover many previously hidden truths about the rich cultural diversity of Africa and the undeniable impact of Black history. In some ways, this has contributed to reversing centuries of intentional hiding and obfuscation of Black civilizations and meaningful African innovation. I'm very proud of what I've been able to achieve so far, which brings me to Reconstructing Egypt. I'm fully aware of the potential.
Yes, tens of millions dealing with the real. I think this channel on YouTube has, I think, just over 10 million views across all my videos. But then my TikTok as well has got about, added together, about 7 million. No, I think this channel has 13 million, and then my TikTok has about 7 or 8 million views. So yeah, quite a few, tens of millions of views is accurate, just to be clear.
Potential impact of my choice to author such a book. I'm clear on my goal, its potential to reach and impact millions. I know that I need to release this book to be able to access a world beyond social media. I also think the timing is crucial. In a year where anti-Black sentiment, anti-Black authorship, the legalized erasure of Black history and accusations of Afrocentrism are all coordinating to attack, undermine and erase even more of our history, It has become clear that racism in social and academic spaces is far from abating. This threat continues to grow. Last year, I began the arduous task creating academic texts, website archives, and obviously continued to draft original research pieces and documentaries, all whilst working full-time. This year, it became very clear to me that it was time to unify my research and reconstructions into a written volume. Documenting our history as it stands is important, as the evidence of melanated contributions continue to disappear. In addition to this, as nations in the Southern Hemisphere continue to reduce their colonial dependencies on the West, so too will the schooling and academic institutions need to develop a base of educational resources built on indigenous ideals, and not on the fabricated legacy left by Western imperialism. New resources are needed. Fortunately, I don't need to start from scratch. Reconstructing Egypt will stand on the shoulders of the great researchers of the past, whilst leaning heavily into my own research, written articles, documentaries, and digital publications. It will also encompass recent developments in anthropology where relevant. I will obviously lean heavily on my specialisms in digital reconstructions, forensic arts, and physical anthropology. Similar to the academic paper I authored in 2024, this book will expose the hidden agenda behind many of the forensic reconstruction projects commissioned by the Department of Egyptian Antiquities. Being a visual learner myself, the book is illustration-rich, containing all of my reconstruction work. This illustrative approach will make it broadly accessible to all ages. I will likely create stretch goals in the form of enhanced print fidelity and complementary additional chapters. So, if you are passionate about preserving our history, why not pre-order a copy or two and help me reach my goal of developing this book? There's a very affordable digital version available for those not too bothered about owning a physical copy. One thing's for sure, none of the progress made in the past few years has been me acting in isolation. Since I launched The King's Monologue, the community support has been immense, so I'd obviously like to thank my several patrons, community members, website donators, subscribers, and followers for taking me this far. I'm sure that together we'll continue to take ownership of our history and have the resources to teach our stories from our perspective to the next generation without resistance.
So there you go. That's the video. Thank you guys for your patience and watching that back. How many? Let me know in the chat if that's the first time, if you've seen that video. It'll be very interesting to know. Just kind of sometimes I wonder what the reach is for some of the stuff that I put out. Obviously something like that, I wouldn't expecting it to get loads of views, but it has far less views than my other videos. So it's just interesting to know who's seen it, who's not seen it. But yeah, there you go. So there's that. I think we can escape that now and get into the topic at hand. Now, the good thing as well, we also have a bit of a theme forming. So yesterday's theme was really just looking.
Hello and welcome to Frotch on Fighting. My name is.
That was very intrusive and rude, Carl Frotch. You lot can see that I spend a lot of time with my combat. I do like watching a lot of fighting. Anyway, that aside, yeah, yesterday's theme that I felt we were working towards when we were watching that, kind of like doing that playback and reading those articles, was just about the properties of melanin, what it's capable of doing. And I hope that that was enlightening to a lot of you, because for me, a load of those things, I'm going to be transparent, had no idea about. And for a lot of those things, I've just heard about these things. So it's really new information to me. If you haven't watched it, go back and watch part one. I'm not going to try and paraphrase what was covered. It's just better that you watch it. As you can see from the live streams we'll be doing, it's not that long. So yeah, do find the time to do that if you haven't done it. Today's one's this one's going to be a bit more of a move towards what's communicated in the kind of amongst modern medical fields in terms of, you know, sun protection. So we'll kind of dive back a little bit into that sun protection discussion, what we're being told, what melanin's capable of, why a lot of the communications that we're getting are incorrect. So we're going to dart about a little bit, but it should be fairly succinct, and we should be able to get through, I think, by the end of this video, just have a nice little base level in terms of our discussion around melanin. And one of the things I mentioned yesterday was melanin as a conductor, which was something that was very, very new to me. Melanin's ability to conduct electricity, which I always find these things wild, because straight away if you think of conductors, we think of a lot of time I think of metals and stuff like that. But then you've got this anyway, I'm not going to try and paraphrase it, but it's just mind-blowing, the kind of stuff that we don't know about this substance, which plays a massive role in humans, but in particularly in melanated people. We are the melanin beings, so it's always interesting to see. By the way, as well, I did a post today, just kind of like leaning into that whole Clark Kent Superman thing, and I was glad to see from many of the feedback comments that I got that people had kind of picked up on some of these nuances as well. I actually think a lot of these comics and stuff are actually based, if not specifically on Black people, but on the Black story. There's loads that I think are kind of secret insider knowledge to the Black story. People mentioned things like Dragon Ball, which was interesting because the Goku's power move, the Kamehameha, is named after the first, or not the first, but the king of Hawaii, the Black king of Hawaii, King Kamehameha. Which is just random stuff like that happens. And then you got Attack on Titan, which, if you haven't watched that, by the way, that's an amazing series, and if you can stomach a bit of anime, get into that. But I think that story is very analogous. In fact, the entire anime is set in Madagascar. A lot of people don't know Madagascar and Africa. The entire anime, they just turned the map upside down and they've changed the populations. But there's all these little things, these little nods. And then obviously Superman, who's, empowered by the sun. And I think many people saw that opening scene without giving a spoiler if you're going to watch the movie. But just that kind of like using the sun to recharge, to heal and recharge his powers. If it was just to heal, that's another thing. Just to heal and recharge his powers, it's like, hey, man, this is it's just interesting. But anyway, let's now get into our video today. So what things do I want to cover today? I want to start off with this video, because this was quite eye-opening to me when I saw this. And this video is called How the Sun Sees You. So remember, we're talking about our interactions with the sun. And basically what this video does is it shows people through a UV lens to get an idea of how the sun, or how sunlight perceives people. It sounds weird, but let me play the video and you guys will see where we're going with this. I'm sure some of you have seen this before.
I won't live up to any expectations. What you see is what you get. And worse yet, I can't give an explanation for why it's gray on your side. Better yet, I'll give you an indication for why you're feeling deprived. We'll never let lack of an imagination keep us locked up inside, even when the sun has died. Somehow in the city, it's summer in the city. Somehow in the city, it's summer in the city.
Now, I'm sure you guys are picking up on this. I've just paused it there. Notice the difference with the melanated beings, okay, who are showing now. I'm not talking exclusively about black people here. I'm also talking about brown people. So just melanated beings. Notice the difference between how the sun perceives them versus perhaps their more pale counterparts, or their the more melanin deficient beings. Have a look. So have a look at this. Look at the effects of sunscreen here. So look at that sunscreen doing the job of melanin there, or at least one of the jobs of melanin. It's not doing none of the conversion, but it certainly seems to be doing some of the absorption. So that sunscreen is doing the job of melanin, in that it's because UV sees it as being dark. Remember, sunlight is absorbed by dark. So that sunscreen is going to be doing the job your melanin does in absorbing all of that sunlight before it penetrates to the skin. The difference is when melanated people absorb it, because the melanins are part of our biology, that absorbed sunlight is then used for other things. So that's the main difference here in what sunscreen is doing versus our own skin. And yes, Macy, you are absolutely correct. Melanated people do not need sunscreen, and we're going to build up on that. So I'll just correct someone there. Someone said sunscreen is part of melanin. I would say no, because melanin's job isn't to screen the sun, it's to absorb the sun. Okay, so it absorbs sunlight at the surface, and then it's able to use it for different things. Okay, so it absorbs it at the surface. So that's what sunscreen is doing here. It's absorbing, but it doesn't have that added benefit that I just spoke about. See, that's criminal. Look at this. Can I just go back here as well? So this young, very light-skinned, melanated boy, even before he's touched, just have a look at how this is a light-skinned melanated guy. So this is really important that we have this, because some people are asking, well, does it make a difference where on the spectrum you are? Well, have a look. Look at him. Look how the sun is viewing him. Yeah. You would have assumed, looking at this, is a dark-skinned boy. And this is not the sunscreen. The sunscreen is just on his cheeks, on his forehead. He hasn't touched it there yet. But have a look at this. Look, have a look at him there. Yeah. So the sun recognizes melanin regardless. You're either, like I said, a melanated being, or you're not a melanated being. You know, isn't that interesting? Even this very light, I mean, his complexion is not very different from hers, but I'm sure beneath a UV camera they have completely different experiences. So that's very interesting to know that. So there you go. I hope that was interesting. Isn't that interesting? Now, that did kind of cast my mind back to, I don't know if you guys have seen the video that I did about mummification and the blackness of mummies. And I spoke about the fact that around 1000 BC, so just at the kind of close of the new period, where some of the less native periods in Egyptian history, not thoroughly non-native, because you still had obviously the Sayat periods and some of the, but during the late period and then on towards really heavily towards the Hellenic period, they started adding bitumen to the mummification compounds. Don't know if all of you have, and I'm not saying that this is the case, but I've speculated that the adding of bitumen to the mummification compounds, i.e. tar, to the mummification compounds, could have been a desire to emulate what was being naturally manifested in the native population, i.e. this idea of accessing the black, the spiritual, the godlike appearance of the mummified ancient Egyptians. So they start adding bitumen. There's no bitumen before 1000 BC, so no bitumen in any of the old, middle, or new kingdom mummifications. So that was just an interesting to note, because this is what this video kind of reminds me of when I see the sunscreen being applied. It's like we work in these really weird cycles and we don't realize how related, our old and our new civilizations are. But anyway, so that's that first video that I wanted to touch on out of the way. Let me move on to our next video. So this is what it is. So let me now move on to this really excellent video. And by the way, I'm trying to get this guy on the channel. I'm not sure if any of you guys know this person. I have messaged him, but only on Insta. This is not his channel, by the way. I can't remember. He introduces himself anyway. So he's there is Ade Adamson, MD. So I have messaged him. I haven't heard back from him yet. I'll probably try some emails. If anyone has any links to him, I always put stuff out to you, because you guys are a big community and someone's probably bound to know him. Hook him up with me. I'd love to have him on the channel. Love to do a long interview of him on Down with the King. And it'll be excellent to have an MD substantiate some of the stuff that I've already said regarding SPFs and how they're treated. But I want you to watch this video, because this is very, very informative. So let me click play on this. Oh, I can't hear anything. Let me unmute it. Let me unmute and refresh and see if that works. Okay, cool. No, let me unmute again.
Cancer in Black people, because
exposure.
Sunscreen does not prevent skin cancer in Black people, because sun exposure is not associated with skin cancer in Black people. It's that simple. There have been numerous studies looking at the relationship between sun exposure and skin cancers across various races, ethnicities. None of them have reliably shown an association between sun and skin cancer in Black people. So
you just heard a doctor say unequivocally, none of the studies show a correlation between sun exposure and skin cancer in Black people. Okay, very important, because this is all stuff that I spoke about in my SPF video. So hopefully now you know that I did obviously provide studies, lots of studies for that video, but it's great hearing it from the mouth of an expert in the field.
Any dermatologist, esthetician, or skin influencer saying that Black people need sunscreen for cancer prevention is not telling you the truth. I'm a skin cancer researcher and dermatologist in the United States, and I've written extensively about this. I've published a seminal articles summarizing the data in this space. And quite frankly, I'm probably among the most knowledgeable on the planet about this very narrow area of science. Even if you step back and use common sense, if the sun was such a powerful risk factor causing skin cancer in Black people, wouldn't there be epidemics of skin cancer in areas of high sun in a lot of Black people, such as the Caribbean or sub-Saharan Africa? And before somebody brings up Bob Marley, who did die from melanoma, was on his toe. And when was the last time you got sunburned down there? So just stop it.
And what he doesn't expand on there, which I'm sure he would have if it wasn't just a short video he was making for Insta, he'd tell you that the form of melanoma that Bob Marley contracted was called acral lentiginous melanoma, which doesn't have a correlation with UV exposure. In fact, there's been a couple studies done where they said there's a non-conclusive negative correlation, i.e. the suggestion is that the less sun exposure you get, the more you're at risk of contracting acral litigious melanoma in black people. So basically, all signs and all cancers are pointing to black people needing more sunlight. Okay.
I hope this clears things up. I'm new to this video content thing, but if you want more content like this, please like, share, or drop a comment, and maybe even follow. Until next time, stay moisturized.
So that's it. I'm going to pause that there. Well, that's done. So that's a really excellent piece of insight. He's got really good content, by the way. So if you want to write his name down, his name is Ade Adamson, or Ade Adamson MD. I'm sure you guys can find him on Instagram. Let me just copy his @ see if you can find him on Insta and other platforms. Like I said, if you want to throw him out there, or throw my name out there to him and say, look, this guy's trying to get you on his channel, you have a really good reach, be able to reach some of the target audience, which seems to be what he's doing, get him on here, because I'd love to have that discussion. Okay. Let me answer this question as well. No, lighter skin is not the reason why he had skin cancer. He got cancer in his toe. It wasn't UV related. So I've just explained that it's acral litigious melanoma. This is the only form of melanoma that you really find occurring. It's not UV induced. So you get this in melanated populations globally, and it's nothing to do with, you know, the sun basically causing quote unquote damage. It's got nothing to do with UV induced melanoma that you see in white. So I just want to kind of clarify and clear that up. And that's what he basically just said there. So let me go on to our next piece of content. So the next one is one that some people asked me if I had seen. Now, I'm not going to play all or even a lot of this video, because I'm going to be totally frank with you. A lot of people have probably seen this already. The guy who's on this, who's a researcher and an academic regarding the subject, some of his narratives I still feel are too entrenched. He goes on a lot about some of the mainstream conspiracy theories regarding health, which I'm not going to mention the name of, but I'm sure it will go. I'm sure some of you will know what I'm talking about instantly. So I wasn't a massive fan of this. I feel like this is kind of a repackaging of a lot of stuff that people have spoken about for a long time, and mainstream academy have, mainstream academia have ignored. I'm not going to say mainstream academia, the medical establishment have ignored for as long as possible. But he does have some good stuff in here. So I'm just going to quickly go to the clip that I thought was a good one, a worthwhile one for us to actually have a little view of. So I'm going to flip to it. This is on Stephen Bartlett's channel, Diary of a CEO. And I'm just going to quickly flip to the clip, which I thought would be a good one for us to have a quick look through. Okay. All right.
There was a study in 2011 in Sweden.
Yes.
Is that linked to this?
No, this is a completely different study, but that's also a very important study. So the Swedish study is groundbreaking. This was a study where they asked 20 to 30,000 Swedish women about their habits in sunlight. And they divided these women into 3 categories. Those women that did not get a lot of sun, those that got a moderate amount of sun, and those that got a lot of sun. And they followed them for 20 years. And they kept a track of each one that died and what they died of. And when they were done with that, they were astonished, because what they found was that the women who had spent the large amount of their time outside, or spent the most amount of time outside, had the least amount of mortality from cancer, from cardiovascular disease, and non-cardiovascular disease. And those that spent the least amount of time outside had the highest levels of that. The magnitude difference between those two was so much that they were able to show that women who, in Sweden, who spent the most amount of time outside and smoked had the same mortality as those women that did not spend as much time outside and did not smoke.
They were equal.
They were equal. In other words, being in that category of not spending much time outside in the sun was the same risk factor for death as smoking.
How do they know it wasn't linked to exercise? How are they able to establish causation? Because that's
that's an excellent question. So the difference here as you go up is this is an association study. Okay, so the question is how can you get causation from association? You can't. But if you look at the Bradford Hill criteria, there is a way that you can potentially make a strong argument for causation if there's something called a dose response curve. In other words, if you can show you're not just comparing two things, but you're comparing three or more, if you can show that as you increase the variable, that there is a change in the outputs, that is strongly suggestive of potentially causation. By the way, this is exactly what we did to show that smoking causes lung cancer. Obviously, we can't do a randomized control trial here. You get to smoke, you don't get to smoke. We'll follow up in 20 years to see who has lung cancer. This is exactly what we did. We showed that there was such a strong association with cancer risk with smoking that we were able to say through association that smoking causes lung cancer. By the way, Richard Weller, who's a dermatologist in England, did just last year a very similar study as to the Swedish study, except it was 10 times bigger, and he did it with both men and women. He found the same results. It was a UK Biobank study.
What did he discover?
He discovered that either from solariums or from or being outside using solar radiation data, he was able to show both on their questionnaire and also where they lived, that the more light that they had, the lower their risk of mortality and cancer mortality. So the question was, does it increase melanoma?
What's melanoma?
Melanoma is a skin cancer. So that's the big risk. That's the big risk that everybody's concerned about. You go out into the sun and you're going to get skin cancer. And he was able to show in that study, this was like 400,000 people in this study, UK Biobank study, Richard Weller. He was able to show that there was no statistical increased risk of melanoma incidence, but there was a reduction in non-skin cancer mortality. Okay, so here's the trade-off. If you want to go out into the sun in England, okay, the benefits are you're going to have a reduction in non-skin cancer mortality.
So everything other than skin cancer.
Correct. On the other hand,
now this is very interesting, because this is when I heard this, I was like, well, that is interesting, because that means then that the entire sun protection formula industry is a fallacy, and these massively high rates of UV induced melanoma, that's what they call it, in pale populations, in demelanated populations, is being caused by something else, which should be terrifying. So I'm not sure how this is being added up. It was just very interesting that when I listened to this, I was like, wait a second, he's saying that sun exposure isn't this dichotomous thing when it comes to pale people, when it comes to white people. Like, there's no dichotomy, like there's nothing to be worried about here. You need to get as much sun as you can, and don't worry about skin cancer, by the way, which is kind of which will be the exact opposite of the messaging that we've been given for God knows how long. I obviously was very comfortable that this isn't, well, I am certain that this isn't the case for melanated populations, but he's now putting this across the board. But like I said, this isn't my words, but it's just interesting because I want to see where they think this is coming from, if it's not UV induced. And that would be interesting, because then it's like, well, then we can have more conversations, continue to have conversations about the role, because then at that point, that's when the skin color becomes entirely arbitrary at that point. You know, something that's really, so it's very interesting he's making this point, because I was like, okay, well, that's interesting. That's something that I wasn't expected to hear, but let me let him finish anyway.
And there's no increase in melanoma incidence. So that caused him to write an op-ed and publish it. And actually, you can look up this op-ed. It's a great op-ed. Published in in the Journal of Investigative Dermatology called Sunlight, Time for a Rethink, where he goes through the arguments. And he's actually shown, and there's been a number of changes that people are making around the globe. So public health organizations that are saying now, before we have said that, the sun is a deadly laser and you should avoid it at all costs. We may need to rethink that.
So are you telling me that essentially 15 minutes in the sun every day turns on a switch in my body that improves my mitochondrial function, which is going to impact a variety of different parts of my health? Is that essentially what you're saying? Essentially, yes.
And we're looking, and this is in an environment where we are spending less and less and less time. To put it in perspective, if we were on a British ship 300 years ago, and I came to you and I said, do you see this little yellow fruit? Just by eating a little bit of this yellow fruit, all of this disease that you're seeing around you with your fellow shipmates is going to go away. That would seem almost incredulous, right? Mm-hmm. But that's exactly the case. We are, the scurvy of the 21st century is the lack of sunlight. Everything is inside. We avoid the outside. We avoid discomfort. We avoid high temperatures. We avoid low temperatures. We used to go out and play sports. We now are playing virtual sports on pads. We have windows that are specifically designed, especially here in Southern California, to eliminate infrared lights. Because why? Infrared lights comes in and it heats up. One of the interesting things, we didn't mention this about infrared light, is the way that we interact with infrared light. You can tell this on your own. You go outside and close your eyes. You can tell which side of your body the sun is on. And the reason is because that infrared light not only can penetrate through your body, it's also penetrating through clothes very easily. And you can feel that heat that you're feeling is the infrared light going through the clothes, going through the skin, and interacting with your heat receptors that are well below the surface. So all of this.
Right, guys, gonna go get
okay, so I'm gonna pause that one there. Hope that was informative for you. Yeah, what did you think? What did you think? We obviously, getting more sun is very, very important. But you also have to understand, as being melanated beings, you're at an advantage because you don't have to worry or limit yourself in the amount of sun exposure you get. You don't have to have any of those concerns. Now, I totally understand that other populations might have to be more balanced, be more strategic in the way they get this sun exposure because of other risks, which he has possibly postulated are not risks, but we don't know at this stage. But we do know, in the case of melanated beings, do not use sunscreen. Get as much sun as possible. You heard it from near enough every report that has been produced on this subject, and you just heard it from Ade Adamson, qualified MD, who marketed himself as the foremost authority in this topic. So how much more information do you need regarding this? Yeah, you don't need any more. Oh my goodness me. Sat 12, stop making guesses, please. Yeah, about yeah, stop making guesses. I'm sure Winnie Mandela, and by the way, Nelson Mandela is much lighter than Winnie Mandela, so I don't know where you got that from, but I don't think Winnie Mandela suffers from sunburn. I mean, it's a possibility, but just stop guessing. This isn't about sunburn. No one's talking about sunburn here. Okay, we're talking about sun exposure and melanoma and the use of SPF, and there's nothing here supporting what you're saying. So let's move on. I'm just trying to find the next video that I want to show you. So we're going to go back to Dr. Alexis Cowan today, but I want to pick out a couple of things. So this is in a longer video that she's done. So yeah, here it is. So let's go here. And
body.
1 second, no, this is the wrong one. Sorry, this is the short one. We saw this yesterday. There's nothing more to see here. Yeah, here it is. So this is the one I wanted. And we're at the first clip, 2210. So let's start.
Indoor spaces. So as it stands right now, you can still buy incandescent bulbs. I personally get all mine from healthlighting.com. And I actually, in all of the rooms of the house that we use light bulbs during the day, I put in the lizard basking bulbs. So they're 100 watt and they contain UVA light as well. So
by the way, she's talking about different products here that simulate sunlight. But what I want you to get from this is the importance of the different types of UV for basically optimal human function. So let it play.
It's more similar to sunlight than, any other bulb you're going to be getting essentially. And the higher the wattage of the incandescent bulb, the brighter it's going to be. So you just have to make sure that your fixtures are compatible with a higher wattage device, or you can get new fixtures as well. But you want to make sure that you're getting as bright as possible, because we do want that bright full spectrum light during the day to support our neurochemistry, our energy, our circadian health, and also our sleep later in the day. So those are some of the light fixtures that I like to use. And then with regards to grounding, I often recommend people get grounding mats, sheets, things like that. But what I usually tell people is, if you can, try to ground them directly into the earth. So what that means is you'll have to run the wire, instead of plugging into an outlet, you'll run it out a window. And if you need more leeway, you can get some insulated copper wire, coil it around the probe that would go into the outlet, and then run the copper wire out the window and just bury a little coil of it in the ground, so that you're directly connecting to the earth. And whenever you're using a grounding device, you always want to test it and actually make sure you're grounded when you're on it, because jump conduction is real, dirty electricity is real, and you don't want to be thinking you're doing something good for your body, but you're actually getting, a dose of non-native EMFs, essentially, depending on where that cord is grounded into. And even if it's grounded into the earth, if there's like buried wires or something nearby, that would potentially influence your ability to get a good solid ground from that placement. So just some considerations there. And people can use just a standard voltmeter to test whether they're grounded. I have a highlight reel on my Instagram called Grounding Test that has like a bunch of different things that I tested, like products that I have used, like a wristband, mats, mattress topper.
I just want to talk about this as well, because Macy's made an excellent point here. And I'm going to go on one now for just a little bit, because it's really important, because it's something that I think about a lot. So Macy's made the point that, well, if you go to Africa, they walk barefoot. Yeah. And walking around barefoot does the best grounding. And by the way, they've told a lot of lies about life expectancy in Africa. They told the lies that, it was like in the early 20s, and a load of rubbish that they like to try and put out about the African continent. I could tell you unequivocally, in my family, in my extended family, in my family's villages, wherever it is, life expectancy has never been an issue. Okay, life expectancy has never been an issue. In fact, I would say Western medicine probably decreased life expectancy in a lot of places in Africa. And I would state that argument based on my family's observation alone, in that some of the ancestors further down my genealogy seem to live longer. Okay. And that's a fact. That's from a personal perspective, but it's a fact in my case. So no one can argue against that with me. Now, what's the point I'm making? The whole narrative that we've been sold, and we've bought into this as well, by the way, I'm not going to say it's just one, is this idea of primitive Africa. But what you'll notice is that Western society, as it gets closer to longevity, health, sustainability, etc., which society do you see it resembling more and more on a daily basis? Do you know that mud brick architecture and building with clay, that thing they called primitive African mud huts, has now been proven to be the most sustainable and effective building material? Do you know they're selling these Vibram shoes which imitate people walking around bare feet, because even irrespective of grounding, which is something that she's talking about, there's also the very basic understanding that actually 99% of back problems are caused by modern footwear. And actually, if you remove them and you rely on the balls of your feet and walking correctly on the soles of your feet for balance, you don't get those kinds of back problems. Do you notice that everyone's talking about organic? Oh, organic food. Everyone wants to eat organic food. Do you know what organic food is? It's food without pesticides. It's food without Western tampering. Do you know where they just happen to eat organic food daily? That's right, the primitive land of the ancestors. Do you know all of these foods, these superfoods that they're getting you to put in your diet to give you longevity, be it the topical treatments like aloe vera or the internal ones like acai berry and etc., etc., sea moss? Where do you think all of these superfoods are naturally occurring? Oh, once again, the land of the ancestors. As Western society gets closer and closer to understanding how to live long, they are moving away from their stupid drug system. They are moving away from their stupid treatment systems, and they are realizing, hey, you know what? If we just live like those primitive Africans, we'll probably live forever. They've managed, just like they managed to convince some of our ancestors that their gods were evil and that they needed this book and this lifestyle, they so too convinced our generation and maybe the generations couple below us that our lifestyles were primitive. And it's taken us and the world evolving to this point now to realize that we have been devolving since our interaction with Western society. Well, I wouldn't say interaction because we interacted with them ages ago. Since the domination of Western societies in Africa, Africa has been devolving, and Western societies have been devolving. Industrialization, everything they do, even when it goes, even look at this live stream I'm doing right now, and I'm surrounded by all of these plastics that are going to be present on this earth in this useless form. When I've got 3 screens in front of me, and when these 3 screens are no longer working within the next decade or so, they will be good for nothing else ever again. They will remain in this form for at least the next 30,000 years before this earth is able to biodegrade these into another useful form. Do you not think there's a reason why the ancestors didn't want to develop this kind of non-agreeable technology? And the reason why perhaps we don't have access to ancient technology is because it was all probably biodegradable. It was probably organic. It was probably built in agreement to work for a while and then move into a different form. Okay. Everything that we see in society, all of these health channels, all holistic, oh, look, they're even brushing their teeth. They're even brushing their teeth with chewing sticks. It's like there's nothing that we do in our native, melanated, indigenous, aboriginal frameworks that they haven't repackaged and sold back to us at a premium. It seems like the primitive way of life was always the most advanced way of life. And I know that is what that revelation came to me a while ago. It's that it's not that your ancestors or the people, these societies were primitive. It's that they were so advanced and so evolved. I know I'm going on a bit of a rant, but think about in the Americas and in Africa and their first interactions with the Europeans. Because you can read the writings of the Portuguese, of blah, blah, and they all say the same thing. As soon as we arrived, these people welcomed us with open arms, this, that, and the other. These people had evolved so much. They had evolved beyond the idea of killing foreigners. They were so in tune with their environment the idea of war, the idea of killing another group of people for being different was so separated from them. They almost went above and beyond to welcome these belligerent groups into their societies, because that's the only way that their psyches could function. Who in that interaction was the barbarian, and who in that interaction was the advanced society? Because they've told you that they were hey, we're the advanced society. We turned up with guns and knives, and we kidnapped their teenage girls, and we had our rapacious way with them, and we did this and we did that, we did this with them. Yes, we were the more advanced society, using the words of William Churchill. Yeah, we were the more advanced race. Who's the barbarian? Because it seems to me that in every interaction, they were the barbarians, and the natives who welcomed them with open arms, who ate organic diets, who had complete harmony with their surroundings, didn't even understand the concept of extinction. For me going in having another rant, because America and all the extinctions of their entire ecosystem is completely a Western invention. And they almost did the same in Africa before they started putting conservations across Africa. This is what barbarians do. They go around killing, destroying, and lo and behold, it's 2025, and they're just about getting to a point when they realize, hey, if we keep doing this, nothing's gonna be left. Let's be like the natives. Isn't it interesting? Sorry, I just went on that little rant because all of this to me ties in to the same thing, the same pattern that you're seeing across the world, is that all of these societies they convinced you were primitive, were the most advanced societies on the world, or in the world, I should say. So Facton, thank you very much for your donation. Said $5. Did you see that man who got I was talking about him. He got an architectural award for using mud, using the same compound as well. It's not like he's just got random mud. He understood from the locals, the African locals, exactly how to compound the mud in the correct way, and they called it innovative and ingenious. And by the way, that's been happening for a while, because the same thing happened in Egypt, where there was an Egyptian architect a few decades ago who got awards for reviving the native Nubian mud brick architecture, and was commissioned to do X, Y, and Z across Egypt using that. The repackaging of African technologies is something that has been going on for ages, and now they're just about catching up that, hey, you want to live long, this is how you should be eating, this is how you should be interacting with your environment, this is how much sunlight you should be getting, this is why do we have to wait for a flipping doctor to say it? Isn't it interesting? Thank you very much, Strigger. Said they vandalize. You mean they vandalize everything? You said it, not me. Absolutely. Anyway, let me let this play.
To name a few, and it shows you basically how to set it up and how to test it to make sure that you're grounded. So that's what I recommend on the grounding front. And if you're going to be, inside with windows, just try to crack them even just a little bit to let some natural light through is way better than just keeping it completely shut. So if weather permits, you can open windows, you can open doors and have light coming in through screens. That's full spectrum light. The screen's not filtering out anything. Obviously, if you look at the screen, there's a bunch of holes. For some reason, people ask me that. They're like, are screens okay? And I'm like, yes. Well, the natural light is coming through.
That's a quick one, Surfactant. Surfactant says, a lot of white people do not like being told what to do unless another white person tells them. A lot of black people don't like being told what to do unless a white person tells them. We have to be honest about this, the amount of black people. Let's be honest. If this entire series on melanin was presented by nothing but black people, I bet you 50% of my current audience wouldn't even be here for part 2. Just gonna throw that one out there.
And so you can totally leverage that as well to help improve the quality of your indoor environments.
When it comes to the grounding mats, if somebody were to set it up the way you described, tested it, is that pretty close to having your feet right on the ground?
Oh yeah, it is. It's the same. It's the same. I mean, obviously there's some differences in that when you're outside grounding, you're also getting fresh air. You're also getting exposed to the natural.
So I think we get the point around grounding and stuff like that there. This is just, it's amazing of these terms as well. I mean, it's great hearing these terms, but this is just like walking around in bare feet. There is a reason our ancestors didn't wear shoes everywhere. And that's not because they weren't able to invent shoes. Yeah. They perhaps understood certain things better. The ancient Egyptians had slippers, but most of the time you didn't see them depicted with slippers. They chose to walk around their environment with bare feet. Do you think that was just a lucky guess? They just happened to figure out that that's how you increase your longevity and have more of a connection with the earth. Do you think that was just because, once again, because someone in a white, whatever you call the overalls, hasn't told you, a white lab coat hasn't told you this, you're just gonna probably believe that your ancestors, even going back to the ancient Egyptians, all of them, they just guessed. They had no idea about these things that we understand now because of our advanced modern science. Let me skip ahead anyway. I want to show you another one. So this next clip that I'm going to skip ahead to, same video, she talks about the taboo around UV light and humans, which is something that we've kind of just started on, but let me let it play through.
And then a ton of infrared all the way out through far infrared. If you wanted to get more of the UV component, you need to look at like the lizard basking bulbs, the reptile basking bulbs. That's what they're made for, because for whatever reason, there's an acknowledgement that these creatures need UV light, but there's like this taboo around UV light in humans. It's just very paradoxical. But anyways, yeah, those would be the bulbs you would want to get if you want to enhance the UV component. And then in the wintertime, you can use things like Spurdy panels. So Spurdy makes a vitamin D light as well as their Fiji sun lamp. So the vitamin D light is about 80% UVB, 20% UVA. The Fiji sun lamp is about 80% UVA, 20% UVB. Depending on somebody's goals. So if somebody has like fat loss or mental health goals, I would go for the UVB dominant lamp. It's going to have more bang for your buck in a shorter period of time because of that POMC component. For people who have cardiovascular health issues, I recommend the UVA dominant lamp because, as it turns out, UVA light is a primary stimulus of nitric oxide in the body. So when UVA light interacts with the skin, it stimulates the production of nitric oxide in the skin, which then diffuses into the bloodstream. And for those people who don't know, nitric oxide is the major factor that allows for vasodilation, so blood vessel dilation, which allows for nutrient and oxygen delivery to tissues, waste removal from tissues, and also lowering blood pressure. Deficits in nitric oxide production are a primary cause of hypertension and cardiovascular disease. And this is largely because people are not getting their skin in the game, as Jack would say. So the more skin you have exposed to natural light, the more nitric oxide you produce, because again, it's made in the skin. So we need to expose as much skin as possible when we're trying to leverage these benefits. And also like just within like, let's say the gym bro community as well, people are often taking like nitric oxide boosters, but not realizing that the light in your environment is the primary stimulus to dictate how much nitric oxide you're actually making. So if you really want to get a good pump, you should be lifting outside in your yard barefoot in the sun with like no shirt, like little as clothes as possible. Like that's like the best approach. And that's what I do as well. I have a home gym in my garage, but we bring our weights out into the yard. And that's a great way to get, the biggest bang for your buck for your workout as well, because then you're not only getting the nitric oxide pump, but you're also getting the red and infrared support of mitochondria. You're also getting the UVB part of the component with the endorphin production, which improves pain tolerance, which means you can get probably a couple extra reps in as well. You're grounding at the same time, so that's going to help provide a healthy balance of electrons to protons in the system. So it's kind of a perfect setup if you can do that. But yeah, to go back to your question, so those would be some options to help enhance the UV light component in the environment. The reptile basking bulbs would be like for continuous use. The Spurdy lamps would be like for pulsed use for like a few minutes a day or something like this. And I typically recommend, if you're going to do the spurty, either use it outside with natural light, so you get the red and infrared added in, because we're always meant to receive them together. Or you can use it with like a sauna space bulb, a sauna bulb, or even a red light panel, just to help add back some of the red and near infrared with the UV, because they have a very synergistic effect when applied together.
So when you're talking about the sauna bulb, I assume you...
We're going to go on here now. The reason I let her talk through that as well is because we're going to talk about some of the innate and chemical harms of sunscreen. So I think this would be a good thing for us to kind of like wrap today's one up on. So let's get there.
You can do that within a sauna, far or near infrared sauna, depending on what you're trying to get. But it sounds like you can get that bulb separately and just have it in your room.
Yeah, so Sauna Space makes one. Healthlighting.com also has one. If you just search like red in their search bar, you can get. They have like a red light therapy bulb, but it's an incandescent bulb. Same with the Sauna Space, so it makes red all the way out through far infrared light. So I really like that. Also, the animals love it as well. Like I usually keep ours on all day, and the cat just kind of like melts under the light for usually like 45 minutes, and then she'll take a break for 15 minutes, and then she'll go back. And I think we can learn a lot from watching animals too, right? Because most of them, if they have access to sunlight, they're always going into the light, and then they're pulsing in some shade time. And that's what we're meant to do as humans as well. Like shade is nature's sunscreen. Leveraging that as needed is a great way to prevent burning, and also just kind of tapping into your body's intuition. If you feel like you're getting overheated.
And that's a good answer to the people who are talking to me about, oh, well, what about light-skinned people? They sunburn, which, by the way, I don't buy into that, because I'm not saying it's impossible, but I think everyone has equal propensity. Melanated people, all melanated people have equal propensity to burn in the sun. And the way you do that is you simply, you utilize shade. I'm very deeply melanated, but even I have the common sense to know when I've been in the sun for too long. Fortunately, I just came back from the Caribbean, took my kids home to see their kind of Caribbean half. And I spent a lot of time in the sun, but spending a lot of time in the sun also meant spending a lot of time in the shade. And yet, no, I didn't use any sunscreen. I never have, and I never will. And yes, all humans are melanated, but some are melanin deficient. So I guess that's the difference that I'm making. So that's that. But let me carry on. And actually, anyway, I'm not going to, we'll leave it at that.
Super hot, or you're starting to get tender on your skin, you move into the shade. It doesn't mean you have to douse yourself in chemicals. I mean, we can talk about the innate harms of sunscreen versus like some of the chemical harms of sunscreen as well, maybe at some point. But yeah, the sauna bulbs are a great thing to have around. They are high wattage though, so you just want to make sure that you get the right fixture for them. So you either want to get a reptile lamp fixture, which is rated up to something like 250 or 260 watts, or I know Health Lighting sells their bulb in a lamp already, so that's like also an easy way to get it.
And how do you feel about these panels? The full body panels, there's handheld ones, there's face masks, ones you can put on your scalp. When it comes to red and infrared light,
there's definitely a time and place for them. They're definitely better than nothing at all when it comes to red and infrared. And we're really meant to receive red and infrared light all day long as the sun is up. So they're not the best way to add red and infrared back into your like ambient environment, because most of them have a timer, first of all. But the best way to do that is really to leverage like bulbs of some sort, just to have on in the background. But for targeted therapy of injury sites or during a workout or something like this, there can definitely be some utility to using them. But yeah, they got a time and place, but they're limited in their spectrum, like I mentioned earlier. So it's not a replacement, but it can be used as a tool for sure.
And when it comes to brands, it seems like more and more companies are jumping on and creating these panels. Is there certain brands that you would lean into?
Yeah, so actually, Mito Red is the brand that we've used for almost 3 years now. And I sit on their scientific board now. So that's a brand that I've tested. They're low EMF, they're no flicker, they work well from my experience.
So I'm going to pause it there. I know some of you are enjoying that, but if you want to catch up on that full, I think actually it's really worthwhile. I'm going to paste that into I'll paste it into the chat. Paste it into the chat so you've got that. So if you're watching this, you can just click in the live chat, and I've put the link to this video in there. If you want to go and watch it, you can do that in your own time. But I think I'm kind of happy with that. You know, that I didn't want to go into massive amounts of detail, but I think doing this all yesterday would have been a bit of a slog and a bit of a rush. So it was nice to split it up between the two. But hopefully now we've got a nice basis for understanding the massive amounts of advantages you have being a melanated being and in your ability to optimize sunlight. Remember, a lot of the extra things, a lot of these kind of like additional uses of bulbs, this, that, and the other, all of this stuff can be done naturally. And you're at a particular advantage if you're a melanated person. You just got to get out into the sun, use it, bask in it, walk in it for a bit, and you'll get all of those advantages. And you really will increase your lifespan. I think one of the videos that I didn't put on actually was that guy who the guy who spoke with Stephen Bartlett. If you go to the start of that video, he gives a story about a young boy who had a cancer. I'm trying to remember which one it was. He has a specific cancer anyway. And he was on death's door. He was a few days away from passing away. And he basically just made the request that he wanted to go outside. And they put him out in the sun. And he basically, long story short, is he healed up completely. And that's not a melanated boy. That's a young, I'm assuming it's not a melanated boy anyway. It's a young kind of pale boy, a young white boy. But sunlight was able to heal him. So this dichotomous relationship, this kind of negative relationship that they've caused the entire world to have with the sun out of their own personal fear of sunlight, got people putting SPF on, talking about the sun like it's this malignant force. We in ourselves really have to revise and revisit a lot of this rhetoric. It's negative rhetoric, it's created rhetoric, and it's damaging rhetoric. And I would encourage you not to allow your children to talk like that as well. Really get it into their psyche and their understanding that the sun is something that they need to be appreciative of. It's something that they should in many ways venerate somewhat, you know. So, you know, that's the important thing. Sat 12, you're just really hell-bent on spreading misinformation. Like we haven't covered all of this. So yesterday's live stream, just to be clear for everyone, made it very, very clear that there's no vitamin D advantage amongst Europeans in comparison to melanated populations. These tests have been done under controlled environments and several times, and they synthesize vitamin D exactly the same. That is a fact. Okay, you can look at the studies, have a look at the first video. I actually give you the references so you can find the studies for yourself. Secondly, the whole idea of pale skin evolving in the European climate and being spread as an advantage, that's a falsity. Okay, the reason why pale skin is dominant in Europe is because of demic diffusion. Okay, that's the reason why. All right, you have basically it's migration over selection, and we know that there have been several expansions, in particular like the Bell Beaker expansion, and the step pastoralist expansions, where these people brought these genes in. This is being proven genetically. And when these introgressions happened, they happened with population replacements, which resulted in founder effects and resulted in bottlenecks. A bottleneck is just a nice way of saying you killed the old population and you brought in a new population. It's a replacement. So it wasn't the kind of soft introgression where there's, you know, where it's a gradual thing and people gradually get included into the population. These were invasions and population replacements. And when these people came in, they brought in their light skin mutations. Okay, these are relatively recent. We just don't have the evidence of any support for a long-term evolutionary natural selection taking place. This was very much a, you know, bottlenecked founder effect, you know, repeating waves of, you know, integration from these populations that eventually have spread over the, unless you're going to tell me that white skin evolved in America. Would you like to make that argument as well? You're going to make the argument that white skin evolved. Are you going to make the argument that white skin evolved in Australia? Oh, well, you know, the white skin was an advantage in Australia where they, well, no, we know what happened in Australia. We know what happened in America. Yeah. And just because European history has been so thoroughly whitewashed, it's still written about. We know what happened in Europe. Okay. We know what happened. We know where these populations came from. So you can try and spread your false history as much as you want, but it's something that's still going on to this day, and it doesn't need repeating, basically. Okay, so that's all there is with that. And I think on that really positive note, we can wrap this one up, because this has been a fantastic live stream. It's now 9:20, so that's an hour 20 minutes, and I think I'm really cool with that. We peaked in around 200. We got about 190 something now. So amazing numbers, guys. I've had an amazing time. Have you enjoyed it? Have you enjoyed it? Let me know. Hit the ones if you've enjoyed it. Let me also know that if you like the scholarship that you've bought. In fact, let me know right now if you've made a purchase for my book, Reconstructing Egypt, on my Kickstarter. Put a, I wanna, if you can find a book emoji, you could put that in. But if you can't find a book emoji, put a $1 or a pound sign in the chat. So put a $1 or a pound sign in the chat, or a book emoji if you can find that, if you've already purchased it. Okay, I just want to kind of see, no pressure. I just want to see if we're hitting numbers on the live streams, if the live streams are working in terms of converting. A few people are putting ones in. Is that for you've got the book? Because that's cool if you've done that. That's a load of you, and I really appreciate that. Lovely, lovely, amazing. All right, if you haven't got it yet and you're intending on getting it, put a 2 in the chat. So if you haven't copped it yet, but you're intending on getting it, put a 2 in the chat. I just want, this is my quick survey. So put a 2 in the chat if you haven't got it yet, but you're intending on getting it. Amazing, amazing, amazing. Lovely. Thank you, wonderful people. Mike, I totally feel you. I love the honesty. I love it. Absolutely love it. Amazing. So Facton says, can we donate additional funds for the book? I think the Kickstarter allows you to make a donation of your choice. I think that's like the very first option. But I'd prefer, and I appreciate that, but I'd prefer if you wanted to make additional donations, maybe go to a higher tier, because then at least you get something back for whatever you're donating. So there's donations that you can make beyond the book purchase in itself that come with other perks, like, you know, there's there's one where you can get a written acknowledgement. There's another one where I put you down as a as my producer, or you know, so publisher, you get publishing mention. There's another one that allows you to write the foreword. I would love by basically any one of you guys. I know it's expensive, by the way, but if people want to get involved in kind of like writing the foreword, I know for a fact that I could trust the messaging that comes back from most of the people who attend my live streams and stuff like that. But by the way, that's not me putting any pressure on. I'm aware that these things are going to be out of the price range for many people. So, but I just want to let you know that that's there. So rather than just making another donation, make a purchase, and then I can give you something back, which is much preferable to me anyway, you know? So yeah. yeah, that's that. Boom, 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 boom. All right, cool. Guys, thank you very much. I see a load of twos there, and that fills me with optimism. Because obviously I'm very really excited about the ability to hopefully blow through my target, but I have to at very least reach it, otherwise the campaign fails. So I'm glad that a load of you are still intending on purchasing the book, which is amazing. I've had a fantastic live stream. If you've enjoyed it, make sure you hit up the like button so that people can come back later and watch it. Let's try and get the likes above the number of concurrent viewers at the moment. And tomorrow's live stream, I haven't scheduled it yet, but I imagine it's going to be a live stream about Egyptian hairstyles, which would be cool. I think we do need a little revisit of that topic. And there's some content that I've put out recently that I haven't really engaged with you guys beyond just doing a couple of shorts. So that's going to be a lot of fun. Make sure you tune in tomorrow. We'll have our deep dive into Egyptian hair. And on that note, let me just quickly give a massive shout out to Macy for your donation. She said she's dropping so much knowledge. I agree with you. That's why I gave you the link to her talk. Feel free to get in that. Traeger said they vandalize everything, which I already mentioned. And Surfactant talked about that guy who got an award. But thank you very much for those donations, guys. I'll see you tomorrow. Yeah? Cool? All right. Thank you very much for tuning in, guys. Much love, respect. And yeah, I'll see you tomorrow's live stream. Peace.